Good evening. I'd like to call the Lee County Board of Education meeting to order tonight. I welcome every one of you. I want to welcome the press here. I want to welcome our representative from Fort Bragg, from the radio station, Margaret Murchison, and every one of you. You are important guests, and thank you for coming tonight. At this time, we will rise up. I will have a moment of silence, and after that, we'll rise up to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's rise as we say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we have two people for public comment, and we'll call them up. Margaret Murchison.
Good evening, Superintendent Bryan and board members. I am here to speak briefly about the W.B. Wicker School proposed STEAM school on the campus. I just want to ask you to please continue to move forward with what you've done, and we are very proud of what you have done so far. I am a product of that community that's very rich in history, and also I'm a graduate of W.B. Wicker School, and I'm sure that any school that's put over there will be very good for the community. It seems recently that there's a little bit of something maybe like sabotage trying to stop the progress, but I would like to encourage this board to move forward, because every day we wait is another long time for kids to have space and a good school to go to. So please go forward with what you've done. Thank you.
Thank you. Brenda Johnson.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Brenda Johnson, and I reside at 815 West McIntosh Street here in the city of Sandford. I am here tonight once again as a W. Wicker alumni and a concerned citizen to express my concerns for the school that is to be built on the W. Wicker campus. I want you to know that my position has not changed since my first appearance here. I am totally in favor of the choices the board has made to make the project happen and encourage them to go on with their plans. I believe anything worth having is worth fighting for. I have my war clothes on, and I plan to stand with you until the end. In my closing, I too have a dream that one day we will all come together, putting all differences aside for the betterment of our children. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the end of our public comments. At this time, I will ask Dr. Kobo to read our policy 2120 for us, and Ms. Livingston.
The mission statement. Aha.
It's on top of other stuff. Sorry about that.
I feel like one of my students. I failed to memorize what I should have. Lee County Schools, in partnership with the community, will provide challenging learning experiences for students in a safe and supportive environment. We are committed to academic excellence, technological innovations, social responsibility, and lifelong learning. Our success will be demonstrated by the achievement of our students and their positive participation in society.
Code of Ethics for School Board Members, Policy 2120. The board recognizes that collectively and individually, all members of the board must adhere to an accepted code of ethics in order to improve public education. Members of the Lee County Board of Education should avoid conflicts of interest and appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of the board. Avoid the solicitation and/or acceptance of gifts in return for advice or assistance on matters concerning the operation of the business of the board. Avoid the misuse of public funds. Avoid misrepresentation or falsification of facts, and avoid making confidential information public. The board accepts the Code of Ethics established by the North Carolina School Boards Association.
Thank you. At this time, we will need a motion for the approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the agenda with one addendum that I need to make. I need to make an addendum under new business for our an agenda report given to me by the superintendent to go over our single prime bidding process for the construction of W. Wicker, and to go over our alternate pricing list in accordance with the North Carolina General Statute, Section 133.3.
Okay. We have a motion. We need a second.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Point of information, can I get a clarification on the two items being added?
That's coming right now.
Okay, that works.
Take one, pass it down.
We have a motion. It's approved. We'll move forward. The next thing is approval of the minutes of 1/9 and 129. A motion, please.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the minutes of January 9th, 2018 and January 29th, 2018 as presented.
We have a motion. We need a second.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion is approved. At this time, we will have our auditor come, Dale Smith, Mr. Smith. Our auditor will be presenting to us the audit report.
All right. Good evening, board members. Dr. Bryan. Has everyone got a bound copy of the audited financial statements? We'll be looking at just a few pages out of the report this evening, and I always like to point out on pages 1 and 2, we've got the financial statement audit opinion letter, and it is a clean, unmodified opinion, and that's exactly what the board wants to receive. And this simply means that we feel as though the numbers and amounts that are presented in the report are reliable and free from any kind of material misstatement, and presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles.
Come closer to the mic.
I'll bring it up to you.
Oh, is that better?
Much
Yeah.
better.
Okay, sorry about that.
Me and my head cold, my ears are...
Okay, I need to repeat anything? Or y'all?
Nope, I think we're good.
Okay. All right. If everyone would, let's turn to page 12 of the report. And we'll look at the district's governmental funds balance sheet as of June 30th, 2017. And we'll primarily be focusing on the first column, which is your general fund, and we'll also look at the restricted revenue fund as well. So first column up at the top, you've got total assets of the district as of June 30th, 2017 were $2,729,030, and that was primarily composed of cash and cash equivalents of $2,342,178. And there in the middle of the page, the district had total liabilities of $1,778,683. And your total assets minus your total liabilities equals fund balance at June 30th, 2017, which is the next to last number that you see in that first column of $950,347. Okay. And reading across, and actually just on the $950,347, that does represent a decrease from the prior year ending fund balance of about $1.9 million. And if you look at page 15, you can see that the board budgeted to use about $2.1 million of fund balance for the year ended June 30th, 2017. If you flip over to page 17, and I'll show you where that number is, or page 15 rather. You've got an original budget column and a final budget column, and it's the bottom number in that final budget column. Okay, now back on page 12, just reading across on the fund balance line, that next to last number, you can see that State Public School Fund and federal grants funds, neither of those funds carry fund balance. The district is required to expend those funds in the year that they're received. So there's never any fund balance going to be reported in those two funds. Looking at your restricted revenue fund, you can see it had an ending fund balance of $384,397 at June 30th, 2017. And that represents a decrease of $833,000 from the amount that was reported at June 30th, 2016. And the board had budgeted to use right at $1 million of fund balance in that fund. And that's, if you look at page 18, you can see where that $1 million was budgeted. And it's in the same location where we talked about that the general fund balance was budgeted. Okay, and we've discussed with management that the district does not have enough fund balance to continue spending that much fund balance again this year. And in our discussions with management, they've said that cuts have been made that will eliminate the need for using fund balance in the current year. You know, it's not uncommon for us to have these discussions with boards. A lot of fund balance was built up in districts across the state back in, I don't know, 2010 to 2012, 2013, when the federal government was giving stimulus dollars to school districts. And what we've seen happen since then is that districts have been, a lot of them have been spending down their fund balance. So, you know, again, we've had these discussions with the districts in the past, but you know, we just recommend, you know, going ahead, cutting off the spending and trying to keep the budget balanced without using fund balance going forward. Anyone have any questions on this page before we move on?
What is the requirement for the fund balance?
The district does not have a required minimum fund balance. I think right now, if you look at your unassigned fund balance, it's $563,495 in the general fund. And that represents, I think, right around 3% of your expenditures in the general fund. The state puts minimums on municipalities, counties, towns, that they can't go below 8%. So what we generally tell districts is that 8%, although it's not a requirement on school boards, it's a good rule of thumb. Mm-hmm. So, you know, right now y'all are below that 8%. So you probably need to be closer to, you know, around $1.4 million, $1.5 million to be at the 8% level. Any more questions?
Sir,
here?
are our expenditure forecast expected to be within those appropriations?
For the current year?
Yes, sir.
That'd probably be a question for Dr. Bryan.
Yes, ma'am, they are.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And are we right now, or within the last year, were we outspending that at all?
Spending?
Our expenditure for the year's revenue?
No. I mean, you didn't overspend what was budgeted to be spent.
And during your audit, did you see anything that would indicate a trend, whether it's positive or negative, that could affect our financials for the next year?
No, it's like we talked about. As long as the cuts are made to not use fund balance in the current year, the district should be fine. Okay. I mean, ideally, you'd see fund balance be a little higher than what it is right now, but you know, 3%, that's not unheard of or unreasonable for districts. Some districts have that as a maximum they want to carry. So it varies across the state.
Okay. Dr. Brian, when did we buy the last book we purchased? Books for the students.
Last year, we made a rather large textbook purchase for students last year.
How much do you have? Just
probably in the neighborhood of 400 or 500. Yeah, about 500,000.
Well,
you told me over 400,000.
Yeah.
we bought new books. Okay.
Okay.
You go ahead.
Okay.
Which, if I may add,
Yes.
is really important to this board. To
Yeah,
make sure that
we will have books. Yes.
it's taken care of.
Okay. Any more questions on this page before I move on?
I would just like for you to repeat that one thing. It would be recommended by you folks that we would have somewhere in the neighborhood of at least 1 million or 1.4, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Auditors, we like to see that number as high as possible. Again, the state does not put a minimum or a maximum on LEAs. So, I think it really boils down to what is the board comfortable with. Sometimes the local government commission, they'll review audit reports, and if sometimes if they see a negative trend, they may want to comment to you folks as the Board of Education, as the oversight group, and let you know, hey, fund balance got spent down a good bit last year. Are y'all aware of that and on top of it? But they're not going to come in and say, hey, your fund balance is too low. You've got to get it to a certain level, because there is no requirement for a school board.
For clarification, the fund balance is essentially the savings account that we
That's
leverage
exactly right.
against rises and falls in appropriations.
Exactly.
It's essentially when we get a pay raise, our fund balance goes up. We get a pay cut, our fund balance goes down. If we maintain simple air service.
That's right. That's right.
And it's also
the-
the money we have for the emergencies. In case something delay, we have money there to go.
Right.
That's right.
use
That's
rainy day
right.
fund.
For unforeseen emergencies that come up, that's what you're going to want to fall back on. So. Let's turn over to page 20, and we'll look at the school food service program. And we'll be looking at the revenues and the expenses for this program on this page. All right. Now, bottom number that you see on this page, $1,309,992, that's the net position or fund balance is another way to look at that as of June 30th, 2017. Now, if you look two numbers above that, you've got a line that says change in net position, and you see it's a negative 109,162. That's your net income or net loss for the year. So the program reported a loss for the year of 109,162. Now in the previous year, the program reported a profit of 156,292. So you went from a profit of 156 to a loss of 109. That's about a $265,000 swing that the program had. A couple of factors really play into that. One being that the program paid an additional $125,000 of indirect cost in the year ended June 30th, 2017 compared to the 2016 year. And indirect cost covers overhead expenses, and that basically is taking money out of child nutrition, putting it over into your other restricted funds. So kind of like taking it out of one pocket, putting it in another pocket within the district. But it does free that money up from having to be used for child nutrition. That way y'all can use it to cover utilities and things of that nature. So that's $125,000 of that swing. Another big piece is, as part of the audit, we have to come in and do an adjustment based on the state auditor's actuarial study related to the pension plan. And that number, that adjustment varies from year to year. And last year, the adjustment was a negative $46,670, meaning we had to add that much of expense to the books. It's not a cash expense. This is just you increase your liability and you increase an expense. It's no money leaves the district. The only money that the district pays out related to retirement is the mandated 17% or 16%, whatever that number is. That's what y'all pay out. But due to this new accounting standard that went into effect in 2015, called GASB 68, we've got to now come in and make this adjustment for you guys. So again, that increased expense $46,000 in 2017. When we did the 2016 audit, we reduced expense by $125,000. So that's a $172,000 flip right there. So you got that 172 plus the 125 more of indirect cost. That more than makes up for the change in profitability of this program last year. So overall, I guess what I'm trying to say is the program really didn't do worse last year. It's basically right there about where it was in 2016. Everyone follow that? I know it's kind of a quick explanation.
And
if you look at the program's cash reserves, it had about $1.2 million of cash in the bank at the end of the year. And overall, we would look at this program and say that it's in good financial condition as of June 30th, 2017. Anyone got a question?
And this is something that I've struggled to wrap my head around. There is a relationship between food service and the district where they work for us and have their own financial stream. Is that to some degree of accuracy?
They're their own entity.
They are.
It's like a
These funds that we're looking at data here are our funds appropriated to them, or are a combination of both?
It's kind of, y'all really don't give them any money. They're self-sustaining. If you look at the revenue sources, okay, up at the top, the first line, food sales, $743,000. That's money that came in from students buying supplemental items, paying for lunches, paying for breakfast.
I think my son ate his weight in brownies on that dime, so.
All right, so you've got that, and then if you look in the middle of the page, you see a caption that says non-operating revenues.
Right.
You've got federal reimbursements. That's the biggest revenue stream that y'all have, $4.1 million. That's where the federal government is giving y'all money for the low-income students. Exactly. So this program is really self-sustaining. Y'all aren't having to fund it from your general fund, and in actuality, it's giving the general fund some money for the indirect cost, for the cost it incurs in operating in the cafeterias, the utilities, and things of that nature.
Okay, that's where I needed the clarification. Is
and not all districts are charging indirect costs, because some of these programs aren't profitable enough to do it. But again, y'all's has been doing better the last few years, and y'all just recently started charging indirect cost.
And that's what I was going to say. Typically, we have not.
Right.
But
I think this might be the second year that y'all have done that.
And also, Dr. Brian, what's the population of our free and reduced lunch?
We're close to 70%.
70% have free and reduced lunch.
And am I not correct that they cannot run a loss at the end of the year? If they were at a loss, we would have to make up the difference.
The difference, where that comes in, is if you've got charges by students, then the state requires y'all to
settle it up.
Yeah,
okay.
to settle
so
that up.
That's not a
and
number
then,
that would
and
be
then
reflected
if
in
the
this
program's
data.
not doing well financially, then you can't charge indirect cost.
Understood.
So you've got some requirements there. Yeah. But again, I think y'all's program is doing fine. All right, any more questions related to child nutrition? All right, starting I think on page 50, there are 3 letters that we issue that relate to the compliance portion of our audit. We're required to spend a large portion of the audit time testing the state and federal grant revenues that the district receives. We do a lot of payroll testing, general disbursement testing, and then there's just specific compliance requirements that are tied to the state and federal grants that flow through the district. And all 3 of these letters, starting on page 50, are unmodified reports which means there were no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses reported in the board's internal controls over financial reporting or administration of these state and federal grant funds. Now, we did report one item of noncompliance on page 58. So if you turn over to page 58, we're required to report any amounts that are owed back to the state that are in excess of $25,000. Now, the district receives a lot of money from the state in the form of for salaries, and there's a report that comes out. It's called a state salary exception report, and we are required to review that report. And if there's any salaries overpaid or underpaid, we're required to review those and meet with the finance officer and determine what the status is of those items. And as of June 30th, there were 20,361, you see it under the condition there, of state salary exceptions. In talking with the finance officer, there were no employees that were overpaid or underpaid. The way school systems operate, you've got state funds, federal funds, local funds. The employees, depending on what their job is, they can be receiving part of their pay from state, federal, and local. These employees were overpaid from the state side, underpaid from the local side. I think that they tried to get that corrected before June 30th. They didn't, so we had to show that as a compliance finding. And this has been paid back as of, it was paid back as of the report date, and all of that's been corrected at this point. So, and then there were also allotment overdrafts of about 27,000, and that's sort of the same thing. The state gives the district dollars in specific programs, and at the end of the year, if the amounts aren't trued up, then you got to true it up after year end. So these items didn't get trued up before June 30th. They got trued up after June 30th, so we have to show that as money being owed back to the state at June 30th. And again, all these amounts were paid back after year end.
When you have allotment overdrafts like that, is there any indication of what program or what expenditure or what?
They do. They show you how much was allotted for, say EC, State 32. And if you've spent more than what was allotted in State 32, then they're going to want that money back. Well, the board is paying EC-related expenses from federal, state, and local funds.
Correct.
So what you want to do as a district is make sure you use every last dollar of state allotment. You don't want the state to have your money at the end of the year because they're not going to give it to you.
Correct.
So what finance officers try to do is be sure you've spent every last penny of state money, and then at June 30th, you go in and you do what's called bud entries, and you pay the state back if you've overspent any state allotments. Well, if you don't do that right, before June 30th, you got to do it after June 30th.
Understood.
So I'd be more concerned if we reviewed that allotment report and y'all had not used all of your state money. Then that's wasting district resources if that happens. But y'all didn't do that. Y'all used all of your state money, and again, I think it's a good thing to go over, especially when you're already spending money from local for that same type of program, those same types of services. You're just making sure you didn't leave any state money on the table. I know it's kind of confusing, and if you sit down
I
with...
think, I guess the question that runs is, if we see an overrun in a particular department that seems like there's a control issue within a department, as long as there's funds in another bucket that can fill the slot, do we really have the oversight to make changes in the way the money is handled? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if it's a matter of, well, as long as the money's somewhere and it can move, then we can just move it and all is well. And
that's exactly right.
From a financial standpoint, that's fine. But from an internal control standpoint of saying, we don't need to constantly overspend in this area or that area and have to find the money to make it up.
Yeah.
That's really what you're getting at, is that
the
money had to be shifted and shuffled to make right what wasn't right. Okay.
If you had to turn around and pay that money back from local and local didn't have it, then
we'd be in a mess.
You'd have a problem.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And that's how the government works sometimes too. Because if you don't spend all the money you are given, you return it to the government.
That's right.
So that's the understanding.
But I think that was pretty much all I had planned to cover. Did anyone have any other specific questions?
I appreciate.
Sir, I have
you
one more
comment.
question. When did you actually present this audit to the board?
Miss
This is it.
Miss Womack, this is
I mean,
that's out of
before
order.
that.
That's out of order.
No, it's a question.
No, that's out of order.
I want
That's
a
a-
clarification. for
That
you,
has
sir,
nothing to
because you're
do.
busy
That had
and-
nothing to do with this discussion, Miss.
It's the budget, sir.
Yeah, but
The reason I'm bringing this up is so the community is aware. We were presented today with almost 60-some pages from your audit, and you are hired by the school board, not the chairman, not the superintendent. Would you not agree, sir? Absolutely. That being said, we were given 60 pages of documentation here. I just want to make sure that you are still comfortable with us approaching you with questions after the board meeting. is over.
Absolutely,
Thank you.
absolutely. If you look on page 2 of the report, there's a phone number, and you feel free to call me.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions?
we bring you here to come and tell us together what we have. We have some board members who have been asking for the report, and there is no way you can understand all the places you get. This audit have a context, context, and auditors are the one who can explain what it is before we begin to dig. And I said I don't have a copy, and one board member asked me, Ms. Womack, where is she needs a copy, and I said I will wait for the auditor to come and present it to the whole board instead of piecemealing everything. So that's where that question is coming from. Thank you very much.
All right.
Let's move forward. Thank you, Dale.
Thank y'all.
God
Thank
bless
you.
you.
Thank you, Dale.
The next thing on our item is the school board certificates.
Mr. Chair, it's a great pleasure. I get to present certificates to board members tonight for training that they receive. And this is for 2016-17. First one goes to you, Mr. Akinosha. Congratulations.
Thank you.
The second one goes to Sandra Bowen. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'll shake your hand at distance. There we go.
Next one goes to Ophelia Livingston. And the next one goes to Miss Sherry Womack. And as always, what you see on the board packet sheet for that, for board members who earned a certain number of hours, and certificate of recognition for what they've done with their professional development. Congratulations to each one of them.
Thank you. We have to take those courses. It's only on the school board you have this serious requirement to take at least 12 credit every year, and so we have to take it so that we can stay current. If you don't take it, you are not current. So they expect us to know what's going on, what we're learning, and we have to travel and go do that. So in spite of our schedule, we still have to take the 12 credit like Mr. Wilson is looking at me like a lawyer. You have to take your continuing education.
CEUs,
So
yep.
it's a continuing education for us. So at this time, we'll have the chairman's report. First of all, I have two of our people in this room that I want to congratulate. Mr. Love, he's been chosen as Man of the Year, and Margaret Murchison, who happened to be with us today too, has been chosen as the Woman of the Year. And we'll be having by North Carolina Community Foundation, Lee County branch, and they will be having a celebration on March 12th And that falls on the day of March 13th. Yes, March 13th. That falls on the March 13th. That falls on the day of our board meeting. So I would love for our board to honor these two distinguished people in our community. And I would want a motion whereby we can move our board meeting from the 13th to Monday the 12th, so that we can still have our meeting. So that's what I want to recommend to the board. So I would like a motion to support this, so that we can go and celebrate with them, because it will be all evening.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I make a motion that we move our regular scheduled March 13th meeting to March 12th, Monday, at the same time at 6 p.m.
Thank you. We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So our meeting is being moved to Monday the 12th at this time. Also, I want to say congratulations to both of you. We hope to see you on that day, Margaret and Mr. Love. At this time, I want to also thank the very serious work that our representatives here have done, John Saul and Robert Reeves, for helping us with this class size thing, to give us a little bit of time to build a new school and to hire new teachers and to do all that necessary before we begin to implement the state mandate about our small classes. So I want to say thank you to both of them, to John Saul and Robert Reeves, who are distinguished members from Lee County and Chatham County. So when you see them, say thank you to them for what they have done to help us and all of our representatives in Raleigh. At this time, I just want to say I thank you all for coming. We're moving along. The state of the affairs of the school is good. We keep working, and we'll keep on doing what we are asked to do here. At this time, also, I want you to be in prayer for one of our board members who is sick at this time, who used to be a board member here, Frank Thompson. His son was a principal here, assistant principal here. He served distinguishedly on this board, but he's sick at this time. I want you to be in prayer for Mr. Frank Thompson. So that concludes my report. At this time, the superintendent will share some other good news with us at this time.
This time I'd like to ask Dr. Jim Atkinson to come forward if he could award the Clean School of the Month.
Good evening. It's a pleasure and an honor this time for my last time, to be able to
Have to duck that
Don't
TV.
say that.
It's your last time to have to duck that TV. That's what you
Yes, ma'am. But Deep River is the winner for January with a score of 99, and we appreciate all the hard work that Ms. Lundy and her staff have done over the course of the years, and especially this past month when they won the award. So I asked Ms. Lundy to come forward at this time, and her staff.
Okay, so we're a man short. That's kind of a joke. So this is Miss Joyce Williams, and this is Miss Margie Reeves, and Mr. Harold Campbell was our head custodian, and he retired just like other people are going to do eventually. Lucky dogs. And so he has gone on to be a retiree, but he has left with us two really wonderful people to take care of our school. So we're going to find that third person to compliment us. But these ladies work so hard, and they are working even harder now that we're a little short. But we do appreciate you giving us this honor, because
having a clean place to learn is really important. So we appreciate that, and thank you for recognizing what these folks do, because it is so important to us. So we thank you so much, and thank you, Dr. Atkinson, for always honoring, Deep River. I appreciate that. Okay, good.
I'm so impressed that you can do the work with 2 people now. Is that a place to court?
Well,
No, I'm just kidding.
no,
you.
I'm glad. If you want me to keep these 2, I better look for me somebody else.
You need to have somebody
You're gonna
else.
give them some help. They're doing very well.
Thank you
and
for-
the kids are helping too.
Thank you
Kids
for
are
what you do.
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
ladies.
you.
Congratulations. Accountability report. I think we have finally sort of gotten our benchmarks and check-ins with the state straightened back up with the calendar from everything we missed in January. It took a lot to sort of get all that back on schedule. 15-minute day, I think, has gone well since we implemented it, and we were working on sort of getting everything back in place. I think everybody was really excited to sort of have a few weeks of school back in session, and we hope that continues with things moving forward. We've also been doing some camps to support our ACT work keys, and also getting ready to start some new camps to support students with ACT, which will be taken at the end of February. So we're really sort of on the road, heading towards the end of the year when you start hearing about those things and moving forward. The final thing on my agenda tonight is a little bittersweet. I'd like to ask Dr. Jim Atkinson to come back to the podium, please.
His wife is here with him too.
And I believe his wife is Karen. Karen is here as well.
You want to join him?
Karen, could you come forward? You thought she was here just to make sure you didn't hit your head on that TV coming around the corner one more time. Karen, thank you for being here tonight. I just want to say that we thank you for everything you have done as an employee in Lee County Schools, as assistant superintendent. For those you don't know, Jim is retiring at the end of the month, and Jim brings his best effort every day for what he does here in Lee County, and I know for a fact for what he has done throughout his educational career, whether it's been coaching or teaching as an administrator or principal. And I just want to say he's always done an outstanding job as a professional and as an educator. But I will also say, and I think anybody in this room who knows Jim, or anybody in this community who knows Jim, that as great of an educator and administrator as he is 1,000 times even better person. And I just want to say how much we appreciate what you have done. We're not done yet, but I just thank you, and I thought tonight was fitting to award, of all people, the Superintendent's Extra Effort Award to Dr. Jim Atkinson.
There is still going to be a banquet in his honor, but it's a blessing to see this tonight. And I just want to thank you for what you've contributed to education. 40 years of service. When I look at it, I said, I'm the same age as Jim, but he has 40 years of service.
I started when I was 10.
And I want to say congratulations to you and your family and your wife. And I want to say God bless you in your retirement. I know you're not going to sit down and not do anything anymore, but I know she's going to put you to work.
Oh, yeah.
Every time I talk to Jim, he will tell me that his wife already have some things for him to do, especially when she retired and she was staying home. It was very difficult for him to do what he's doing. Thank you for letting us have him for as long as we do. I appreciate that. We know it takes two to be successful, and the two of you are good pair for our school system. Thank you very much. He told me that when he came here, he was thinking of staying for 4 years. How long did you stay?
This is number 14. Well,
14. 14 going to 15. So let's give him a hand again. We're going to go down and take pictures with him. Okay. Say something before.
I'll just say thank you all for the support that you've given throughout the years, and truly God has blessed me, and I want to thank him first and foremost. And working with good people, I tell the directors that we have, I was retired a long time ago, 10 years ago, but we have good people in Lee County, good, hard-working people, and the directors that I work with, the superintendent, his staff, everyone, the teachers, the principals, they treat me like I want to be treated, and I try to treat them like I want to be treated. And good Lord has blessed me, so thank you.
Thank you.
Before you leave, some of us want to say some stuff to you before you try to walk off again. You know, you affected my life before I ever knew you, because you were my best friend's principal in Shelby.
Yes, it was.
So, I mean, you've had this conversation, and the support you gave my mother and my father, and you've given me, has been lasting. So I just want to say thank you, and you know, you're a person to look up to, minus the Tar Heel fanhood, and
including the Tar Heel.
Yeah. So, but just thank you for what you've done for my family.
Well, thank you very much.
And Jim, I'd like to know if you're going to give up your real job refereeing football.
If my knees and my back and my ankles will hold up, I'll try it again.
Good for you.
Thank you, sir.
And Dr. Atkinson, I think I would be remiss if I didn't say serving on that policy committee the way I did. I kind of got thrown into it when I was elected to this board. Wendy Carlisle was the chair of that committee, and then she left the board, and I got thrown in, I think, about 3 months went behind the ears to get into the policy business. And I could not have had a better mentor to help to guide me into what I needed to do, and I could not ask for a softer place to fall when the stuff hit the fan, you know. And so I appreciate your support, and you will be sorely missed with our policy committee. I'm sure you won't miss those 3-hour-long ordeals on some months, but it has been a distinct honor and pleasure to work with you, knowing that I was not just working with a professional, but a distinguished man of God. It meant a great deal.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for all your help.
Let's go down.
I know. We'll make it look bad, but you'll make it look good.
Mr. Chair, I have one more item I'd like to share with the board. This is a proof, for lack of a better term, of a brochure we've been working on regarding the school district, and just like to share it with you tonight, and get your thoughts on it. But it sort of captures what I believe we call it Inspired, and it's an insider's guide to opportunity in Lee County schools. And it's a brochure that we can share with businesses and realtors, etc., about, I guess for lack of a better term, our story for Lee County schools. So let me give everybody a copy. We will make sure that folks get copies as they need that. And this, like I said, this is approved, so there might be a couple of things that are off just a little bit with it, but I think it gives you a good idea of what we're looking for. So, and I also have some extra copies up here as well. I'll give to Sharon after the meeting.
If you don't read our,
Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
if you don't read our Inspire that comes on our website, please read it. Very inspiring. That's what we do. You see exactly what we do. Sometimes you don't know what the board do and the school system. So, but if you read it, you see some of the things about our student, our staff, and all the things they put together. So, thank you, Dr. Bryan, and your staff.
Thank you.
At this time, we will go into the committee report. We'll go to CNI.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. The High School Curriculum and Instructions Committee met on Wednesday, December the 31st at Lee Early College. Discussion was from the superintendent, Dr. Bryant, who made the 15-minute, January the 31st, not December 31st, was made that 15 minutes will be added to the school day to make up the district being closed during the inclement weather. Dr. Diedrich presented the Summer Achievement Program, which will come before the board for approval. Lee County teacher, Ms. Miller Cheatham, shared her best practices for use of vocabulary strategies in the classroom. This information was very informative and is a time-saving technique for all the teachers. The Middle School Curriculum and Instructions Committee met on Wednesday, February the 7th at 3:30 at Wesley Middle School. The highlight of the meeting was the best practices that was presented using virtual reality, or known as VR, the goggles in the classroom. By incorporating Google Expedition in the software, teachers now have the ability to showcase up to 700 virtual field trips to their students. Google Expeditions brings videos to life. These standalone VR kits come with a tablet, a commercial router, training videos, and much more. The VR field trips allow classrooms to explore the world without leaving the classroom. These videos include stopping points during which teachers can add more information and answer questions. During this best practice, I was able to experience this virtual reality experience, and it was fascinating and extremely educational. Other board members and visiting teachers were also able to experience this world-class opportunity, and my grandson just adored it. And so, Mr. Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go to Facility and Technology.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Facilities and Technology Committee met on the 23rd of January. We had a pretty slim agenda. In fact, we only had one item, and that it was a memorandum of understanding for the YMCA Wide Learning After-School Program at BT Bullock School. And it was a consensus of the committee to approve this memorandum of understanding after-school program at BT Bullock School. And in fact, Mr. Kelly and I were so impressed with the presentation, I've asked Stephanie Clark if she would brief the board briefly on what the YMCA is doing for our students at Bullock School. Please.
Yes.
I told him I was going to bring him up.
Good. And welcome, Zach.
Well, good evening, Dr. Bryan and the board. I am Stephanie Clark, the principal of BT Bullock, but I would love for these folks to introduce themselves as well.
Good evening. Thank you guys for having us. Zach West with the Ingram Family YMCA.
And I'm Maddie Halloran, also with the YMCA. We are so excited about this program that we're starting at BT Bullock. We actually have done a sort of a form of Y Learning in the past, but this is new and improved. We basically took some data that we had gathered from years past on what really worked for our students and really to build a program that is providing what some of our kids don't get at home. That time to go over their homework, to go over multiplication facts, to drill on spelling, those things that you do at the kitchen table with your kiddos. Some of our kids don't get that at home. And so our wonderful folks at the YMCA worked with us to provide YMCA aftercare, which is obviously amazing. But we also get to work with our kids, 70 children, and we're hoping to go all the way up to 100 children who are going to be working in small groups with certified teachers on their homework and things that they need to review and every day. So those kind of skills. The other great thing is we built into the program time to be a kid. We said that when children come off of school, sometimes it's tough to go right from an academic setting back into an academic setting. And sometimes we saw that there were some behavior problems. So we allowed our kids, allow our kids to be kids. They get out of school, they get to have a snack, they get to chill out for a little bit, and our teachers join them later. And then after they're finished with their academic session, they can go back to playing and being with their friends so that it isn't just all work and no play. We built that into it as well. So what else?
One, we are very thankful as a YMCA for the partnership. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
For the partnership that the school system has given us. I've been here in Lee County since 2009, and I can't say enough about the school board, about the employees of the school system who have opened their doors to us from day one, even before I got here. But in the time that I've been here, the school board has been very supportive of the Y and has been willing to partner with us. And so we're very thankful for staff such as Stephanie and all of her staff that are willing to work with us to be able to put this program in place. It's possible through the donors that we have here in the community. Every year the YMCA has an annual campaign. As I'm looking around this room, we have volunteers of that campaign and we have donors of that campaign. But the money that is given during that stays right here in this community. It doesn't go anywhere else, and 100% of the funds go towards the programs that we offer. And so it allows us to offer a tutoring program at no charge to the families at BT Bullock. And so we're just very thankful for the partnership that we have with you guys. And so thank you for allowing us to be at the table.
Thank you.
And we are equally thankful for what the Y does for our students. And it's only through community support like this that we're going to get our kids academically where they need to be. Thanks again for what you do for our children.
Thank you.
Again, I just want to say thank you. And if I could take 1 second,
Yes.
Dr. Atkinson, I found out tonight that he's leaving. He has been a friend of mine, a friend of the Y's for the almost 9 years that I've been here in Lee County. He has always looked at both sides of the table. He's looked at how is this going to benefit the school system, but how is this going to benefit our community? And he has been a supporter of ours. He has always kept me in the loop and been a friend of us. And so I hate to hear that he's leaving, but just wanted to say publicly thank you for all that you've done.
We all hate to hear it.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes the Facility and Technology Committee report. Our next meeting will be on Tuesday, the 27th of February. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman. This will be on the consent agenda, by the way.
Okay. Finance.
Mr. Chairman, the Finance Committee met on the 23rd of January. We had a fairly slim agenda for this as well. We corrected a clerical error in a fundraiser request from that was introduced by Heather. Heather's not here. Well, as best I understand it, you correct me if I'm wrong, a check just got deposited in the wrong account, and we had to back it out and correct it, and it requires approval of the board, and that item will also be on the agenda, consent agenda. We reviewed the board expense report, and that was on your agenda as well. Please note that we have changed the dates of meeting of the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee at Mr. Kelly's request, we'll meet on the same day as finance, same day as F&T. So we'll have F&T at 4 o'clock and finance at 5 o'clock on the dates that are listed. And that also prompted a change in our budget calendar, so make a note of that change as well. And we meet next on February the 27th.
Thank you. We go to policy.
1 second, let me finish my note.
Okay, why
Thank you very much. The policy committee did not meet since our last meeting. Unfortunately, we had a meeting scheduled, but there wasn't a great deal of information coming out of the state at that time, and it was highly convenient to me as I had a child in the hospital at that point. So we were able to cancel that meeting and carry on. Our next meeting is scheduled for February 20th. However, even in the absence of the meeting, we do have something I need to clarify under unfinished business. Last meeting, we had policy 7410 come before us. That's the teacher contracts, and we had the motion at that point to put it forward on first reading. After it went out, the School Board Association, North Carolina School Board Association, came back with some suggested modifications to that policy. So basically, we got out ahead of them by a couple of days. Looking at the modifications that they suggested, they are not substantive, really, to the original policy. However, under recommendation from their attorneys as well as from our own, we believe that we can incorporate their changes, and that's the document you have on your agenda. All of the yellows are simply the modifications to our first reading, and if we'll have two motions tonight, basically. If you looked at those modifications, we'll have one motion to accept the amended first reading, and then we can continue. Tongue-tied. We can continue to move this forward on second reading. So there were very minor changes to clarify and I guess further pinpoint this policy. So I hope everyone had an opportunity to read that, and if you have any questions at the time we get to it under unfinished business, Mr. Conway, Dr. Atkinson, somebody should be able to address any concerns. Otherwise, we can move that forward on second reading this evening.
Okay.
Any questions on that?
Okay,
If not, that concludes my policy report.
Okay. At this time, I want to give Ms. Womack. I want to give Ms. Womack 5 minutes to tell us. She has something to share with us.
Actually, all right. I actually attended the training at the North Carolina School Board Association, and we learned a lot. The superintendent was actually there as well of the schools. A lot of heated discussions in reference to some changes that our House has recommended in reference to innovative school processes. I think Dr. Livingston was there, and Dr. Smith was there as well. The highlights from the training that I received was one of the major things included the school board's responsibility and physical responsibility. And that's probably particularly why I was asking a lot of the significant questions. One of the biggest statements that came out that was the most meaningful to me, or something that I would warn other school board members of, was in Virginia at the school board. The school board was found negligent in reference to their case studies as far as not failing in their oversight responsibilities and circumventing the school policies. And so you see we hone in on the policies a lot, and that's why I really truly enjoy the school board. They also had classes in reference to pension spiking and getting ready for the budget changes and how we should be doing them periodically as opposed to just once a year. They did an update on the Innovative School District, and I'm not sure if y'all are aware of what that is, but that's where they've made a proposal where some of the schools that are not performing very well, they thought it would be a great idea to come and take control of those schools, and they would take control of a school for about 4 or 5 years and then give it back. And of course, my personal opinion as one board member, I did not feel that was an appropriate process to be going through. The other highlights of the week for me anyway was the spelling bee. Saturday, it was cold, it was wet, it was raining. The kids were ultimately, they were adorable. And then the Lee County High School actually had an event where it was similar to a round robin in the military, where you could go from one program to the other. And I thoroughly enjoyed the art and music and, of course, the ROTC department. And that's all I have, sir.
Thank you for your report. At this time, we want a motion for the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have it, all in favor, say aye.
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 The consent agenda is approved as it is. This time we're going to the unfinished business.
Mr. Chair, given the conversation we just had about this policy 7410,
Yes.
the first motion, I move that the Lee County Board of Education approve the additional changes to policy 7410 teacher contracts.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. And therefore, I move that Lee County Board of Education approve the second reading of policy 7410 teacher contracts.
Second.
All in favor, say aye again.
Aye.
The motion is approved.
Thank you for that.
At this time, we'll go to the new business, replacement of school bus financial arrangement. Mr. Kegel.
Mr.
Good
Chairman,
evening, Mr. I'm sorry.
You go first. Now I'll make the motion.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman of the
evening.
Board. Tonight I come to you to ask that you allow the chairman to sign off on these financing arrangements to purchase 16 new buses. These are state replacement buses. They're not additional buses to our fleet. The state comes up with criteria to meet, and these 16 meet that. So we have done this 12 of the last 13 years, and the state DPI makes the payments on our behalf. Any questions I can help you with on that?
I've signed a couple of them over the years.
Yes, sir.
Well, in that case, Mr. Chairman, I move that the Lee County Board of Education approve the master replacement bus financing agreement as presented.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 The motion is approved. Thank you, Mr. Kegel. At this time, I will look at the budget calendar. Kelly.
Mr. Chair and members of the board, you will find a copy of the revised calendar I've been sick. You'll see the revisions due to the snow days as well as the meeting change so that it can follow the facilities and technology meeting on the 27th.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we accept the 2019-2018 revised budget calendar as presented.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Kelly. At this time, I will give the floor to my colleague and Vice Chair, Patrick Kelly. He has some things to tell us about the discussion for School Extended Day.
So, thank you, Mr. Chair and fellow board members. I would like to have a discussion about extending our school day for the next year, not this year. In the past, I have talked to other counties and other administrators. Other counties have agreed to extend their school day starting at the beginning of the school year. In essence, they're banking up time for snow days or any kind of makeup day that they need. So the surrounding counties bank up time starting at the beginning of the year. The one difference I want to do than the other counties is that some counties do not give that time back to the teachers if it goes unused. What I would like to propose is that we start in August by extending the school day 10 minutes and banking up that time. If there's no snow or hurricane, which is highly unlikely for this area, we'll add in 2 work days and a day around Memorial Day, leaving those 3 days as optional teacher work days. If you talk to a teacher or principal, they say that's one day that they'd really like to have in March. I see principals shaking their head as I say this, that work days in March would be viable to not only staff and students and teachers. Because there's no work days from when they come back in January until spring break. So that's a long period of time that our students and our staff are working. So for us to bank up time and able to give them the optional of workday, if there's no snow, would be in my book, a home run for everyone. Now, that is on the understanding that if there is a snow or a hurricane, we have to come back to school, that those work days will turn into regular days. So I would propose that this discussion go to our C&I committee for further discussion, to talk to our principals, but also I'll be willing to come and speak as well. Again, I just want to extend the school day so that we can have those work days built in and save our spring break, and so we're not rushed and having to add 15 minutes when these events occur, that they're already made up and banked in. We can ask the surrounding counties or other counties to do it as well. But again, I think having a work day in March and another day around Memorial Day in May is something our teachers and our schools desperately need. Any questions from anyone on the board?
I have one question. Where did we get 10 minutes from?
By adding 10 minutes each day and using 185 days or hours that we're supposed to, 185 days or 1,025 minutes, by adding 10 minutes to the instructional time each day equals to 5 days that we've banked up. Now, I mentioned 3 days. The other 2 days I want to leave up to the actual school system and principals where they think they need to be fit in. So by adding 10 minutes starting in August, banks up to 5 days throughout the year.
It'd be optional to the administrator to use those 10 minutes as they see fit.
I would like that as well, because I think
not just tacked on.
Not tacked on, but the administrators in our schools know what they need to, if they need to focus on.
It has to be instructional time.
Yeah,
it can't be after lunch. It has to be instructional time.
That's just
right.
But it gives them that flexibility. Is that 10 minutes instructional time could be used for ACT, such as one of our high schools are doing now. Again, it's giving the local school system flexibility this way as well. So, but again, I think, I see heads shaking when I talk about work days in March and work days in May. We especially need this time for our staff.
Okay. Good. At this time, I will just refer that to the superintendent and the CNI committee and the budget. I said that the school calendar committee, so that you come up. If he wants to join you and talk over there, that's fine.
The only concern I have, and actually I just spoke to Mr. Kelly right before we started the meeting, is that the teachers not be expected to work beyond their contractual limits without compensation.
That's where
I think that's the big concern, is that sometimes you bank the time and it's essentially free days that you're working. But I understand where you're saying that those teacher work days offset that, and that would be a win. That's
right, because our teachers deserve more time off, and I'm not going to make them work more than they need.
Two ends against the middle. It's
right.
So that's why we need to get it to the calendar committee and the CNI, so that they can iron it out, and not for us to do it here.
Correct.
So that there can be discussion with people who are really going to do the job.
No rush, but I'm hoping to do this next year.
Okay. The next thing we have at this time, we need a motion to go into closed session.
Okay. We got one more item, Mr. Chair, the item I mentioned earlier about the bidding process, and you took my copy, if I can get it back.
Okay. Did I take your copy?
Not that. This there.
Oh, okay.
So part of our construction process for W. Wicker is that we need to make a recommendation that the use of a single prime bidding method be used for the construction of the W.B. Wicker. This is in actual accordance with our policy 9120 for construction work. So I'm going to make a motion that we, the Lee County Board of Education, accept the single prime method of bidding and approve the list of manufacturing items for construction bid alternate pricing for the new elementary school at W.B. Wicker. Any questions?
I think the superintendent should explain to us what that meant to the public.
I'm going to ask Chris and Dr. Atkinson to come forward, if they don't mind. Single prime bidding, and they can correct me if I'm wrong here, basically means that a single contractor will oversee the project. That's one of the choices we have, but it's also the way most things are handled in North Carolina regarding that. The second part is the list of manufactured items for the alternate pricing, and that also has to be approved by the board so that as we go through the bidding process, everybody knows what we're looking for within the project. Dr. Atkinson, Mr. McNeil, would you like to add anything to that?
I think you did a good job in explaining it. The basic philosophy of that is that we have things that we're using. For example, the HVAC, we have Train that we have used for years, and our staff is knowledgeable and all throughout the schools, and we don't need to have two different systems within our different schools that we have. We have one system going, then it makes it a lot easier as far as even pricing and trying to get quotes sometimes, because we have to retrain people to learn the mechanisms. And same thing with our locks, our keys,
security systems, you
our,
name it. And this is a way also for this board to make sure that we're saving money as we build W Wicker, because we're using some of the same products that we already have in the school system.
Yes, sir.
Yes, everything in this list, the valves, the pumps, we already using what we keep on inventory. We keep a low inventory in our shop already. But all our contractors, this helps us where we don't have to get different contractors to come in and pay them, where my guys are doing the work. The maintenance department, they do all the repairs unless there's major repairs that we can't accomplish. And we have local vendors here in town, in our county, that does the work too.
So help me understand. Number one, I guess the question is, does that mean that we have the architect's spec book and we're requesting alternate hardware, or is this recommendation approved by the board to go to the architect for inclusion in his spec book?
We have preferred items and materials and equipment that we already using, excuse me, that we'd like to be consistent with, as Mr. McNeil stated, to keep, one, our inventory down. We don't have to have different types of things to go. So we're saying that we're using these types of things, and this can be used. We've talked with our directors who are in charge, for example.
For bidding purpose, here's the
Yes.
question I have. Has the architect come back with his final renderings and specs on finishes and so forth? Because that's what this is. This is door hardware and so forth. Do we have that information yet? Or is this just us saying this is what we would like to use to the person who will be providing the product?
The latter.
Okay, so this is going to go to the architect from us.
It's going to go
and
to
then it will go to those who will bid to build.
Yes,
Copy that.
so that they know what.
All right,
what
so
they're
I was
bidding
wondering
on.
what I was wondering is if the spec book existed and it's already been looked at to say we would like alternate pricing on these items as opposed to the ones the architect selected. But that's a no. We don't have that, Shan. You're ahead of the game. I like that.
But,
Okay.
But Chris, the bottom line is it increases efficiency, it's going to save costs, and it eliminates the contractor's cost. Am I correct?
Yes, because
Allows
we
in-house
basically,
maintenance.
Because that
we
would be,
basically take
because I've
care
seen
of
you do all
everything.
your stuff in order to say, yeah. Okay.
In-house
So-
maintenance. Got it.
So that's why I want you guys to come and explain that to the public. Not that I don't know, but
Because you
I
do a
want
better
to-
job than me.
We want you to tell the public what we're doing instead of wrapping it in a code. We need a second for
I'll
that.
second that motion, Mark.
We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion is approved.
I guess the next question is how soon will we be looking at receiving bids from contractors? According to the plan that the commissioners had several months ago, it was March. Good. Very good.
March the 6th.
All righty.
Going to a closed session motion now.
Mr. Chair, one quick thing before we go into closed session. I want to take this opportunity to say congratulations to Chris and Daisy Dawsonbach, who within the next few hours or days will be expecting a little boy, and that she is currently at Duke Hospital. And so I just want to put that on the record, that congratulations to our very own Dr. Dawsonbach and his little boy that they're expecting in the next few hours or tomorrow. So at that, I will move that Lee County Board of Education go into closed session for the following purposes. First, to discuss information that is privileged, confidential, or not a public record under North Carolina General Section 143 through 18.11A1, and to consult with our attorney in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege under North Carolina General Section 143 through 18A11A3.
We need a second.
Second.
The motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are in closed session now.
We're good.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion we come back from closed session.
Thank you. Everybody in favor of that?
Aye. Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the administrative personnel report as presented in closed session.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye. Mr. Chair. Okay. Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the personnel report as presented.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The motion is approved.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we adjourn our meeting for tonight.
Second.
Second.